So Bitcoin is sitting at 70,282. And we did see a drop towards our support of $68,000. So it went down to 68,000. Just a second. Let me change this to hourly so we could see it clearly. It went to 68,830, and I had mentioned that as long as 68 holds, you can expect it to go back up towards $73,000 and above. Of course, your first line of resistance at that time would be 71,500, and then we will be talking about 73,600, all that stuff. But that's pretty much it. 71,500. I mentioned that this is the neckline, if you remember. And this is the neckline of the double top, and it's going to act as a resistance. So you see, this is the double top, this is the neckline, and when it went up, it touched it and it dramatically dropped, which is crazy. Now it is trying to go back up. There is a green candle going up, but you can see the reaction. That was crazy. Now let's see what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin is going to enter a phase of very rapid movement, so it is extremely important to remember your areas. Your support is $68,000 as long as it holds. Your first line of resistance is 71,500, and we did have a confirmation today when it went up and it reacted to 71,500 and it just dumped. That was your first indication, and that indicated that okay, this resistance is a resistance, but that doesn't mean that we can't break it. But of course we will be looking for confirmation, spending time above the resistance to confirm this has been conquered, and now we are going towards the higher target areas. And of course we are talking about 73,600, which is the all-time high that it created. It needs to now go and break that. All this can happen as long as we continue to hold $68,000. So far so good. We are holding on to it. That is giving us good amount of hope. But the moment you lose $68,000, we are back to square one, and that is $65,000, which is the neckline of our previous double top, if you remember. Just a second. Previous double bottom, and this one, and I think even the larger one. I'll just look at the larger one. I think it was the neckline for the double top of the larger one as well, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just zoom in. Yep, that was the case scenario there as well. The actual number is 64, but it front runs it. The problem is that the support is actually at 64,000, but Bitcoin front runs it by $1,000. That's why I'm saying 65 plus 65 is easy for you to remember. Yeah, that is the case scenario with that neckline as well. So the situation hasn't changed, and if you're wondering about the 68 as well, 68, why does 68 matter? It's because it has pretty much a lot of action in that area. As long as we continue to hold above 68, we are hopeful towards a more bullish case scenario that can really break the resistance of 73,600 as well and continue with this upward rally. But if it takes a bit of more breather and go down further, then that can make things a bit tricky. And I think the 50% retracement that we were talking about, it has happened. If you look at it, it has happened. It went up this much. It has done 50% retracement. So this is an ideal case scenario. For any rally that happens, 50% retracement is healthy. But if you're talking about the larger story, when we started from 58,000, of course, we haven't retraced that much. And that retracement is again at $65,000. That's the 50% for this rally. Let's see how it plays out. It is too early to talk about bigger story because November is a extremely bullish month. It is not bullish for the opening and closing. Closing can be red, which means that our opening price was 70,300. The closing can be lower than that, and still November would be considered a good month, because in between November can create its peak. It can go to $80,000 and then dump back to 69 and then close November as a red month. Stuff like that can happen because November historically doesn't have a green indication. It has 7 greens and 5 reds, which means it is a 60-40 kind of scenario. So you are not in a case scenario of like October, where you had 10 greens and you had 2 reds. So it was more of a sure shot to assume that that October is going to close green, because we opened at 63,600 and we closed at 70,300. Even if we didn't know at that time, we could have gone for it in the opening price of October. We could have purchased, knowing for sure that towards the end of October, when we will be closing this, we will be closing this in profit, because it will close. If you just want to rely on opening and closing, in between, of course, you had way more opportunities for October. You could have sold it at 72, 73 instead of waiting for the closing. So you would have made money. That is always easy money when you have more statistical advantage. But in case scenario of November, you don't have that. November is a tricky month. It's always tricky because there are so many questions around it, and I've discussed this in length in my Telegram group that I have. I'm not going to get into details. It's already 6 minutes. So you know your support areas, your resistances, and why it is acting towards 71,500. I did share that in yesterday's video. You should have known that. So there was no surprise whatsoever over there. Right now, all we are looking for is whether we break 71,500 and start living above it, or we are going to face problems with it and we are going to go and retest the 68,000 and see whether this is a good support or not.